My defining moment overall that has informed myself as a person, because I'm a whole person, I also happen to have this role, is that after college, I went over to Europe with $500 in my pocket and was determined to have a career there and stay there. Um, so there was a lot of unknown in all of that. I ended up working for Reuters, now Thomson Reuters. I had an amazing career. I launched in my 20s really well. Again, there was serendipity in that. But through that experience, there were so many things that I had to navigate. I was working in 4 languages and somewhat fluent in 2 and learning 2 others. I had to learn how to be a working person, a professional person. I had to learn about the financial markets because I was working we worked in the financial sector. So there was all this newness, right? And also doing adulting. And I realized that that was the defining moment for me. I was thinking about what brought me there, and it was this, um, you know, just always looking for more information, always trying to soak up more information, and it's curiosity. And I was particularly interested in languages, but it's a common theme throughout my life is I'm willing to try the hard thing. Um, Also, I go in a lot of different directions because of that curiosity.
Hey everyone, John Fenton here, the CEO of Sensei, and I'm with my special guest today, Lisa Dunbar. She's the CEO of Paradigm Personality Labs based in Charlotte, North Carolina. Hey Lisa, how are you today?
I'm great. It's really great to be here, John. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much. And Lisa, I'm just so intrigued by what your company does, and Paradigm Personality Lab sounds really, really sciencey. I'd love to hear more about that and learn a little bit about yourself and more about the company and kind of things that you see going forward, leadership, and a whole lot of other really good stuff in our time together this morning. So let me just start off by asking you, tell us more about Paradigm Personality Labs.
So Paradigm Personality Labs provides behavioral assessments for the workplace. People are normally really interested when they see just the word personality, right? Because we all enjoy learning more about ourselves. So we provide assessments, personality assessments, behavioral assessments for the workplace. And we take a very holistic approach because when we can help people through self-awareness, understand what they bring to the table at their workplace, we can set them up for success, we can set them up for well-being. And it also has this kind of dual bottom line approach where we help individuals reach towards the overlying business goals as well.
Well, it's really so important. I think awareness is so underrated sometimes. I know when I'm working with clients and helping them that the first step one is assessing the current situation and raising the level of awareness.
Yeah, and just when we think we've gotten to one level of awareness, there's always something that comes in to teach us a new lesson when we need it. So I feel like it's one of those things where we keep on spiraling up.
Hmm. So tell me, how did you get into this business? Tell me about that.
Serendipity. A lot of people have a plan for how they go about their life, and there has been some planning in mind for sure. I started out my career in the financial futures markets, financial futures and options in Chicago, and then took a 7-year hiatus to raise my boys. I had 3 young boys at the time, and it was just a lot of swirl trying to keep all of it together. So I decided that my place was to be with them for a while. So when I came back into the workforce, it was 2008, and the banking industry in Charlotte was not a place to land. It was severely impacted by the recession. So I was looking for alternatives and not quite sure how to redefine myself. And really, I was on the soccer field talking to a friend about a company I was interested in that was in the financial markets. And I had taken a personality assessment called the MBTI. And the president of that company had decided that because where I was on one of the scales would suggest that I wouldn't be good for project management. And then I thought, well, I'm so focused at how I do my work. I have a history of performing in project management, and I was having trouble reconciling with that. So when I told my friend, she's like, I work for a company that does personality assessments. Take our assessment, and we've got an open position. And our assessment, the Workplace Big Five profile, validated that I had the infrastructure to really perform as a project manager. But thank God it saved me from that, because I found this work that I love. So
What do you
that's the
love about it?
serendipity.
What is it for you? What is it that really kind of gets you going? And what's that? What is it that you love about the work that you do?
I think that all of us on the team really align with a purpose, that by providing these assessments and the reports that go around them, we're helping people bring their best to work and feeling just feeling like they are connecting to their purpose. And when that happens, people thrive, organizations thrive. So this whole concept of well-being, and it really ties to some of my personal beliefs and philosophies and personal practices. So to be able to bring all of that together for me is it's really meaningful. And
Mm.
it's what gets me up in the morning, to be able to tie to my purpose.
So how do you define, I hear a lot about well-being. How do you define well-being?
It's multifaceted, right? But the thing is that we spend at least 8 hours during the pandemic. I think a lot of us are spending a lot more than that during our day at work. So we need to feel that we're in alignment with our work, that it's not drudgery, right? There's all kinds of things that happen to us from an emotional and physical space when we have that drain. And so being able to set people up that way, or at least give them some tools to increase their well-being that way, is important. So that it ties into the emotional well-being at work. And also um, we talk about values as well as personality, and we have an assessment that looks at one's values. So when we understand our values, we understand our fundamental motivators and drivers. And when we can align those with and bring some of those into the workplace, we're really teeing up for success.
So, I've taken tons of personality assessments. I'm sure you have too. And so how does your company's personality assessment, how does that compare to others, and what's unique about yours?
So the founders of our company's been around for 30 years. Dr. Pierce Howard and Jane Howard were mavericks. 30 years ago, Pierce was reading a book about brain science, and he read about the five-factor model of personality, which at that point, 30 years ago, the model was relatively new. And they started working with it in their consulting work. And the assessment is scientifically based, the five-factor model. It's rigorous. It allows us to use it for any kind of OD intervention. And they took our assessment and modified it for the workplace, so that the language is workplace centric. We have themes and narratives within the report that relate to the world of work. So that's what makes it unique.
Tell me about who are your ideal customers or ideal clients?
Our ideal clients are a larger sized organization. We say between 5,000 and 15,000 employees. And the reason we love working with clients of any size, we love working with clients that have a large enough organization where we can help them embed the workplace to have greatest impact for their organization, whether it's selection, leadership development, teams, employees, all of that, because the assessment can fit all of those needs. It's nice to help the organizations have a fully embedded solution. So where we can act as consultants and not purely assessment providers.
And what would you say from your perspective, what does leadership mean to you? What's good leadership look like to you?
So it's evolving, John, and I think as I learn more about leadership, I think we have to take that beginner's mindset throughout our leadership journey and stay open and stay curious. And the pandemic has been such a fertile practice ground for what is leadership. Lately, some of the things that have been on my mind as our company really had to do a lot of pivots is the concept of anti-fragility, that in times of stress, we can come out stronger. There's certain mindsets and capacities that allow us to come out stronger, both from an individual standpoint and from an organizational standpoint. And I'm proud of our team that we naturally adopted this anti-fragile mindset so that we could come out stronger. So I've been thinking about how do we take the learnings and you reflect on them, get them down on paper so that we can replicate what went right going forward, and also look at what went wrong. There were some things that didn't work, but we try to hold that lightly, that at least we got in there. There's the Theodore Roosevelt quote that, the man in the ring, if he fails, at least he did so doing, working at it, basically. And so that's been always been kind of my mindset. I'm pretty eager to get in the ring, and sometimes I'm not aware of what all of the things I may run up against, or the big dinosaur down there or whatever that I have to slay. But that's been kind of our mindset as an organization, and I think not for all the individuals. So I've had to learn throughout this journey too, that because that's my way of being, I can't expect people to want to get in the ring with me all the time.
Yeah, it's interesting. I love the Teddy Roosevelt quote. Even in early age, I love reading biographies, and I remember that being the first one I read about Teddy Roosevelt and what he overcame, and I love that quote. Tell me more about this anti-fragility mindset. I think you were talking about. Now this month is Mental Health Month, I think, right? So it's so important, I think, to have that resilience and have that ability to overcome. And we've gone through a lot as a society, right? This last year and a half. Tell me more about what are some of the things that you encourage people to do or teams to do to help build that strength and that resilience?
So it's interesting when we talk about resilience, because it's a term that's necessary. It's on everyone's minds during the pandemic. We measure it in our assessment. We like thinking of it as not just being resilient, not being able to stay with the thing, but being able to thrive. And that's kind of what the anti-fragility gets at too, is how do we thrive during this and not just survive? So we've taken a very, I would say, personal approach to it. What does each person need? One, we've been working remote the whole time. That works better for some people than others. So there's one person on my team with whom I'm realizing, I realized, having a cup of coffee outdoors, it works for me because I need that personal connection too, and also very important for that person. It's been providing just little surprises that they don't expect coming. Like I got them these T-shirts that says "You're on mute," because when we start our meetings, a lot of times there's always someone on mute. So that was kind of fun. Just impromptu lunches delivered to their door, things like that. More importantly, it's having honest conversations about when we're feeling overwhelmed and where we need support. And that's always something that is evolving for us to get better at. And also skilling us up through my Vistage group, for example. We'll sit in on meetings. This week it was one about piercing conversations. We realize as an organization, we're nice, and I'm fundamentally a somewhat recovered pleaser. So how do we have these conversations to move the needle and make sure that we're making our voice heard? So just always trying to have on our radar what each person needs, and making sure that that's coming, if it's not coming through me, is it who they directly report to? So trying to take an individual report, and we're lucky to do that.
Yeah, it's so important. I think really some of the best, and I always use a football analogy many times, some of the best coaches that I knew and some of the best coaches I observed, they knew their players very well. They knew their skills, their talents, their unique abilities. And it's really, sometimes it feels like a daunting thing as a CEO to understand all those things about your people, but it really requires that you do that to some level to be able to work with them and creating that environment of having an open and honest conversation. It's so important, isn't it?
Yeah, and as you're reflecting that back to me, I'm also thinking about the importance of sharing, of saying, "Oh my gosh, right now I'm feeling the overwhelm." Carefully, right? Because you don't want to discourage the team, but also being real and honest. I think it keeps the communication doors open.
I know, so it's so hard as a CEO, I think sometimes as a leader to, or even just not even a CEO, but any leader, you've heard of imposter syndrome, right? And so sometimes we kind of get in our heads about, am I doing the right thing? And do they want to follow me? And am I leading properly and the right way? And who am I to be in this leadership role? But, you're there and you're there for a reason in that role. And so honor that, and know that I think I've read recently, imposter syndrome really is a good sign, because number one, it means that you really care about the people you lead and what you're doing and doing a good job as a leader, but also that you've achieved success, and it's natural to feel that way.
Yeah, and that's been on my mind too. And part of the role, it also means that we're not getting the feedback that we were getting in, earlier in our careers. So that's part of these piercing conversations that I'm encouraging from the team, is that give me feedback. I want the feedback. It helps you, it helps me, it helps the company. Sometimes it can feel like you're in a vacuum without it. And um, yeah, that imposter syndrome can be very real. And I
Mm,
like how you're saying that it can serve a higher purpose too.
it really can. It really can. So, what do you see as the future for your company going forward? And I know obviously you've had to pivot or do some adjustments in the business. Tell me more about that and kind of the challenges that you're seeing and opportunities, and what do you see going forward?
Well, we have reinvented our company and retooled as a result of a buyout. Not as a result, but we purchased the company 2 years ago from the founders, and we thought our overall mission is to extend their legacy of what they produce into a larger audience. And to do that, there were some things that we felt needed to happen. And so we've completely reimagined the assessments while keeping the all the rigor and the bones of what the Howards provided. And also we've looked to the industry to see what's needed. And we see that there's so much opportunity in an assessment. That's a great starting point. But we do so many assessments in the industry, as people use them and as they're provided, are a one-off experience. We want taking the workplace Big Five profile or the workplace values profile to be an experience where we get these insights and then move to meaningful action that creates impact for us and our organizations. So we want those aha moments. And then what do you do with the aha moment? Like, let's not stop there. We've got this traction. Let's move on with it and see what energizes and drains me at work, and how can I manage that? We can manage it through our personality by having awareness and taking some small steps. So building more around that and helping the coaches and trainers and facilitators and HR professionals have more tools at their fingertips so that they can get the most out of this assessment. The assessment is a great tool, and there's so much more that we can do around it. Like you mentioned, resilience. One of the things that was on our minds during the pandemic is we could directly address resilience through the assessment and provide more meaning around it. So those types of things, or anti-fragility, we'll start building out more thought leadership around that over the next couple of years.
I think it's so important. And I think the real benefit of the kind of work that you do is, it's great to come in and you see this, right? Consultants come into a company and they'll do an assessment and they leave, and either the company doesn't embrace it or they don't take the next step, or the consultants aren't available. So it's really, I think it's do the assessment, but then it's really implementing. How does that relate to what we do day to day? And how can we use this to make our people and our company better? And I really love what you're saying about that.
Yeah, and we find that with this approach too, that people are so hungry for it that they want to take the next step. And when we provide assessments, it's not something punitive. Sometimes that comes into the people wonder, how's the organization going to use it? But when you put the overall philosophy around the assessment as one of developmental in focus and for your well-being in the organizations, it changes how people respond to it and how excited they are to move towards improvement and to think about how could they feel more comfortable at work. Actually, it's what turns us on to work at Paradigm is the client interactions and the participant interactions, just to see those light bulb moments, and when people feel understood and heard, it's big.
So tell me about a situation where you've been with a company, you've been brought into a company, and tell me about a situation when it's been really successful about the assessment and the implementation, and the services you provide around that. Give me an example of one that really stands out to you that's been very successful.
So one of our clients would not be in some ways what we would consider a traditional client in that are in the manufacturing space, and they would seem overall from the company culture to be less interested in using personality assessments, just really wanting to focus on skills and performance and very driving, that's their culture. But early on, one of the key people at I say early on because it's been about 15 years now. One of the key people in the executive suite had an experience through a coach with the Workplace Big Five profile. And that person it opened up a way of thinking that they hadn't experienced before. So they decided to bring Workplace in for selection so that because their culture is unique, they needed to hire certain people thrive in their environment and other people certainly don't. So understanding personality, a selection, how to hire best fits through personality has made a key difference. It's also because it's been embedded so long, it's a part of their culture. So we use the values assessment with them, we do team building with them. It's part of like I said, it's part of their language, it's part of their culture now, and they bring more understanding towards one another. So to be able to partner with them through this journey has been really exciting.
Yeah, it's so important to get the right people on the bus, right, and get the right fit, because if they're not, either they're not going to perform or not going to meet the standards that your company has set. They're probably not going to fit in the culture, and sometimes that can be detrimental to the culture as well.
Yeah, and so some people can look at that and say, well, if you're hiring for personality, you're excluding others. It's not that at all. It's looking at the role and what contributes to success in the role, both for the individual, I'm repeating, but it's important, both for the individual and the organization. I mean, you may really want this role as the head of sales and marketing, but everything in your personality infrastructure may show up as draining. And if we would probe and ask you about that, you would see that you've adopted behaviors to thrive, but it takes a toll. Like, is it coming from your drive, your need to succeed, where you just push through? And what's the impact to you personally, both from a health space and from an emotional space, physical and emotional?
Well, that's great. So one couple of final questions for you today. And again, thank you so much. Lisa Dunbar, CEO of Paradigm Personality Labs, with me today. Lisa, so I'd love to learn from leaders and CEOs. So I call them defining moments in their lives where they were challenged, they overcame that challenge, and it set them up for future success and helped them to be the leader that they are today. So is there a defining moment for you that you'd like to share?
I was thinking about this last night because you gave me the question ahead of time, and there's a family culture of humility, so I had to really think about this. So one of the things that I struggled with when I took a break when my boys were young teenagers, I took 12 months out of the workforce and was really trying to think about, who am I? And I thought, well, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. I'm not an expert in any of them. So I was starting to have some judgment about that. And then I found this video, I'm not sure how I found it, by Elizabeth Gilbert, called The Flight of the Hummingbird. And she talked about how there's some people like her that have jackhammers and have that one thing and they just go at it. And she said there's other people that are more like hummingbirds that kind of go from flower to flower, tree to tree, and take on a lot of different things. And then they assimilate it and bring it all together, and then they cross pollinate. And she said, and when she said that, I was like, that's who I am. I'm the hummingbird. And I'd rather be a hummingbird than a jackhammer when you think about the visuals on it. But it described who I was, and it released me from this idea that I had to be a specialist in any one thing. So I think that's also what I bring to my role now, is that the ability, or really the curiosity to go off into something unknown and figure out, oh wait, maybe this is something that's interesting for us to bring into our company, and trying to solve those different pieces. I also know that it comes at a price. Because sometimes it's like the shiny object. So that self-awareness has helped me. Also, another defining moment has also been just my personal practices, and you and I have talked about this, mindfulness practices really help. Well, it's always a practice, right? It's sometimes I feel very grounded, but that mindfulness helps be aware of, I think, my environment, and also helps stabilize during times like the pandemic. I feel like it helps me tend to the relational space between myself and others. So those are kind of my foundational elements, buzzing all over the place, but yet trying to be still.
Wow. So that's a lot. That's a lot. It's really great. Thank you for sharing that. So yes, I think mindfulness is so important, as you and I had talked about before. And I think more and more, obviously it's mental health month, right? On a national scale or international scale. And with the pandemic, we've seen a lot happening from a mental health perspective, with people really dealing with a lot of anxiety, and even more even deeper issues around anxiety. And so mindfulness can be really helpful. And I, as you know, I practice as well on a daily basis. And I heard about courage. I heard you have great courage. I mean, going off to Europe with $500 in your pocket, that's really amazing. And the courage to do that. And I think, but also that curiosity that you have. And I think it's such an important factor too. So curiosity and courage and confidence that you can take it on and do it.
Sometimes I don't know if it's confidence or if it's just that I'm so attracted to that thing out there that I just go for it, leap and look later.
Right. Well, I know it's a kind of a double-edged sword, right? It's a great thing to have a curiosity, but you got to balance it too. So that's really cool. Well, Lisa Dunbar, I'm so happy to have you on with me today. Lisa Dunbar, everybody. Lisa Dunbar is the CEO of Paradigm Personality Labs in Charlotte. Lisa, how can people find out more about your company, and how can they connect with you?
So we're at www.paradigmpersonality.com, or else simply info@paradigmpersonality will get you to me. I'm on LinkedIn. Please connect with me on LinkedIn.
Great. Yeah, that's awesome. I'll put all that information in the show notes so everybody can see that and get the links. So again, this is John Fenton, the CEO of Sensei. I'm so happy to have Lisa Dunbar, CEO of Paradigm Personality Labs, with me today. Have a great day, everyone.